I'm Audrey Yankton, empowerment and intuition coach, and this is Unveil You, the podcast where spirituality meets practicality to help you step fully into your power. Each episode, we'll talk about what it really means to align with your higher self, trust your inner knowing, and walk through life with grounded, soul-led confidence. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for being here. I have a very special guest today. Her name is Juliana Sloane, and she is a hypnotherapist, a Buddhist teacher, and a coach for the unconscious mind. I'm going to let her give a really great intro. More than that, obviously, there's a lot of stuff, really interesting things going on that she does. She's really an amazing person, a great energy, and I'm really excited to have her on the show today. And I will say the thing we're going to be focusing in on today is the hypnotherapy aspect of what she does, because it's something I've actually never done hypnotherapy before, and I am just fascinated to learn more about it. So I'm really glad we made this connection. So Juliana, if you want to just give us an intro and a little bit of background about what you do before we kind of get into what we're going to talk about today, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Audrey. It's great to see you and be here with you. So like you said, I'm a hypnotherapist, a Buddhist teacher, a coach for the unconscious mind. There's a few other things we could throw in there, but really, if I were to give someone, what is the snapshot of, what does all this mean? What my goal in working with people is to help them harness the power of their own awareness, their consciousness, their unconscious mind, and to direct it in such a way that they can make powerful change and transformation. One of my teachers, I love this, she talks about hypnotherapy particularly as kind of like meditation with an agenda. So we're using some of these same powerful, transformative, relaxing states that we might find in a meditation practice, but we're taking them and we're actually using them in order to achieve a certain aim. So for some people that might be navigating a change in relationship, or a fear or phobia, or anxiety, or any number of different things.
I love that, because that's actually the number one complaint I hear from people about meditation is why they don't do it. They're like, I don't know how to do it. It just feels like I'm sitting and it's quiet and nothing's happening. So it sounds like this is a very practical tool for people who maybe meditation is not their forte, or they're just not figuring it out. It's not working for them. Something that they can use in a very tangible way. So that's really exciting. Okay, well, let's go ahead and talk about this mystical, fun world of hypnotherapy, because I think there's a lot of things to debunk in it. Like when you and I had chatted before, I know I was laughing because the only time I've experienced like hypnosis, not for myself, but just watching it, was like post-prom. Like, they hire like a hypnotist and they come in and they make somebody like, squawk like a chicken and do crazy things. And it's like, it's just, that's like the party tricks, right? There's like a whole level deeper that, and why I'm so fascinated in learning more about this as I go through like my own healing and spiritual journeys. So early on, like I mentioned, we had talked and you'd mentioned that you'd tried things like therapy and coaching. And you were very aware of your patterns, which I can heavily relate to, I know what's wrong with me, but why am I not changing, right? So what about that? So you had this awareness, things weren't shifting. What felt like was missing for you during those days before you went down this beautiful journey that is your career now?
Yeah, great question. So here's the thing. I did therapy for years when I was younger and tried coaching. I did all kinds of classes and retreats and, all the things. I love learning about psychology. I love personal growth. I feel like there is limitless potential to what we humans are capable of when it comes to consciousness and living more fully and being more kind.
Absolutely.
And, I feel like in some ways my story is really, really typical to most of the people that I work with. Most of the folks that I work with, they're highly intelligent. They're curious about their own growth. They've done the work and then kind of plateaued. Mm-hmm. And there's still something that feels stuck. And the magic, first with meditation, then with hypnosis, the magic that I feel like I encountered and am so honored to be able to share with others is, the thing with our patterns is we can understand the story, we can understand the psychological theory behind it, we can have deep self-awareness of what our triggers are, what our reactivity is. But unless we actually get the tools first to stop and pause, and when that trigger comes up, or when that, thought loop or self-criticism or whatever it is starts rolling, first we have to be able to stop ourselves. Then we have to be able to de-escalate whatever cocktail of emotions, physiological responses, adrenaline, whatever is happening for us. And then we may need to be able to make a different choice. And where I see people getting stuck is there's a lot of awareness, but the pattern keeps on rolling because there's not actually the opportunity to go through that process. And the thing with that process is that it creates new neural pathways. If we've been going through our life only having really unavailable people in our life, feeling like, real love and connection isn't available to me because I've seen this over and over and over, and it's what it was like in my family of origin, and we're kind of off to the races. This is a pattern and a belief that we have rehearsed over and over and over and over. And
a lot of the time, sometimes not even from yourself, right?
Exactly, exactly. And so part of what happens, we're surrounded by it, it's the water we're swimming in it, it's the way that we've adapted to life. Our worldview develops around that belief. And the brain is really great at making things simple. It wants to conserve energy. It wants to have ease. And so it tends to make shortcuts. It tends to make sure things are easy. We fall into the same pattern of thinking or talking to ourselves or whatever it is over and over and over again. And as we practice it, as it repeats, the pattern gets stronger. And the neural pathways tied to that pattern get stronger. And so what we're really doing when we're working on the hypnotic level is we're accessing this whole big sphere of the unconscious mind that isn't available to us at the talk level. So if we say, I've talked about this for years in therapy, well, yeah. And I bet that was helpful in some ways. I bet you processed a lot. I bet you got a lot of awareness. I bet, there was some real purpose behind that. But now you got to go to that other subconscious part and start actually reshaping what's happening inside.
And I can imagine with hypnotherapy too, it's like how often, like when you have a client, are you kind of pulling something out that they didn't have awareness of though, because I'm somebody I'm constantly studying myself. I constantly want to be aware. There was a time in my life, like early on when I was doing the therapy, the coaching, things like that, where I'm like, great, I have all this awareness. Now what? And I was able to shift it through methods like EFT, which I've talked to my listeners about before. But, some people really struggle getting that awareness. So, are those the kinds of breakthroughs you're seeing with clients where you're like extracting out themes that they literally had no idea about until they were in that trance state?
Absolutely. This is the place, part of what I love about this work is that we can constantly surprise ourselves. We can constantly learn new things. So often people will stop after a session and be like, wow, there's no way I could have made that up. That was wild. And they suddenly see the way the dots are connecting differently. That's so empowering and liberating. And it's something that they did for themselves,
Because you can only change yourself. No one else can change you, right? And it's funny to work with like different people where you can tell some people they want to make the changes. You're going to be successful. When you want to sit back and maybe like deny that there's anything going on below the surface, you're going to have a harder time because like if you can't, there's nothing shameful or embarrassing about it, right? We all have like mindsets that are limiting and things that we work through. It's part of the human experience. So I think like the sooner people can just accept that and like accept yourself for all the flaws that you are and just like see the awareness as a gift, just it just helps people change so much faster. And love that hypnotherapy can help with people that, don't like to, like maybe they're just really struggling, like, what is my problem? So, and that kind of like takes me to my next question for you, which was, you told me that about 5 to 10% of our patterns are conscious and the rest are unconscious. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit more then? Like, how in the world is it that only 5 to 10% of what I'm doing every day is something that I'm intending to do, right? Like that feels crazy.
It is so wild.
Yeah.
And yet, if we think about it, we are breathing, we are perceiving, there's all of these different systems in the body that are operating. You watch a TV show and something startles you. You don't think to yourself, hey, I'm going to be startled right now. It just happens.
Right.
And the fact is, we're going through that all the time. The email from your boss pops up and it says, hey, can we talk?
Yes.
The adrenaline spikes.
Yep.
Right? Then all of a sudden, the worry starts. All of a sudden, we're imagining that meeting and what they're going to say with us. And we're feeling like we're in trouble. Mm-hmm. And, maybe we even feel like, I feel like I'm a 7-year-old kid and I'm getting yelled at by my parent. And all of that might happen in a minute.
Just from reading.
Right when you're
sentence.
seeing that email.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is just one small example, but, that level of kind of cascade of experience and association and memory and emotion, that's happening to us pretty much every waking moment of our life. And so, we might very mindfully say, okay, I am going to reach for my bottle of water right now and pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times do you just go, oh yeah, okay, anyway, and you pick up your bottle of water and you're just drinking from it and you didn't even really consciously think to pick it up. So, the truth is unless we slow it down, unless we really start paying attention, this is where mindfulness can be such a powerful practice. There's so much that actually just zips by us really, really fast.
And that's actually kind of the next thing I was going to ask is maybe like the scientific level deeper of what you're saying is when someone is saying, I know why I'm doing this, but I just can't stop. Like how many of us do things that we're like, I wish I didn't do that. Why can't I quit doing this? What on a neurological level is actually going on for people?
Absolutely. Some of it, and I'm not a neuroscience, so I can speak to some of it, but not all of it.
Same. I'm a passionate neuro learner, you could say.
Yes, totally. Some of it is simply that we have created a really strong neural pathway when it comes to a particular habit or pattern or trigger in our life. I'm thinking about someone that I worked with who has a fear of flying. And that pattern, it's just entrenched. They have had fear arise with thinking about boarding a plane for years. And the more you do it, you hear the phrase neurons that fire together, wire together. Mm-hmm. Every time you repeat it, those neurons fire together and wire together and fire together and wire together. And they get stronger and stronger. And it simply becomes the easiest path. It's the path of least resistance because it's the most practiced path. Mm-hmm. And so one of the places where actually it can feel really hard to make a change is when we are starting to try and shift a long-standing pattern like that. Mm-hmm. And the reason it feels hard, the reason it feels like I know that there's a really small likelihood we're going to crash on this flight, and yet I'm scared. The reason that it's so challenging is because we actually have to teach our mind to go in an entirely different direction that's counter to an entire roadmap of mental activity that we have been doing over and over and over, that our mind and body thinks is the correct way to do things. We're literally having to blaze a new path.
It's funny, like you talking about that just kind of reminded me, like I had this really irrational like fear, you could say, when I went to college. I was a freshman in college, and I was an engineering student at the time, and none of my friends were doing that. So I just had these like really weird times of day classes versus everybody else that I would normally be with. And I had this strange fear of eating by myself. I couldn't do it. I don't know what the problem was. It sounds so stupid now because I'm like, oh, that's no big deal now. But going to the dining hall by myself was like my worst fear. And, it's funny, being 18 years old, you realize you're either with my sisters or my parents or the, friends or the cafeteria. Like you never had that before. And then it was like, I was confronted with this like very strange fear all of a sudden of like, oh, I don't know what to do. So I was like, spending most of my freshman year doing like eating Pop-Tarts in my room, or like getting a bowl of cereal, or like what can I do, like grab and go. It's just funny how much it was like controlling my life. And I actually lost like not a ton of weight, but like a noticeable amount, and just from this one stupid fear. Like it was so dumb. And kind of as the years went on, I like you don't live on campus anymore. It's like you're at your house. Like that's not as big of a deal. But then I remember having my first job that made me travel places, and I would like go by myself, and I had to like, I was probably like 24 years old, and I'm like, I have to eat by myself. Like, okay, going to a restaurant, that feels like the ultimate fear. But I feel like I just made myself do it. I started small, like in airport, like sitting at the bar at the airport, and having a meal there. And it's like, a lot of people are solo. Okay, I can do this. It was like dipping my toes in. And then now it's like, whatever. No, it'd be nice to like go out and get a meal by myself now that I'm a mom and married for so long. But yeah, it is funny though, how it's like, it's so terrifying, and you don't know where these things come from sometimes. And something as simple as like having a meal by yourself. But yeah, anyway, I can just relate to that so much, is sometimes the best way over something is through it.
Exactly. And, I love what you're sharing, because I would imagine, those first few times, they probably felt pretty weird.
Oh, yeah.
Such
Feel
an unfamiliar way of being. And the great thing about hypnosis is that it actually allows us to practice those new experiences in a really safe, really contained space, because this is one of the things actually that, you probably hear about professional athletes, Olympian athletes doing these practices of mental rehearsal. They've found that imagining shooting a basket sends the same signals to your body as if you were actually doing it. And so even visualizing and imagining shooting that basket, getting nothing but net, will actually train your body to perform better during the next game. And that's without going into trance. And so when you go into trance, you're going even a level deeper, and you're able to actually practice having the experience navigating, maybe the awkward feeling or the emotion that comes up or whatever it is, and overcoming it, so that then you can go out there and do it in real life. It's a really, really beautiful way of working with especially things like public speaking. Yes. It is amazing because all of a sudden, you've already practiced it. You've already walked up on that stage and been amazing.
Yeah.
And so, your body doesn't know the difference.
That's so cool.
Our minds are so powerful.
It's so amazing. And I live by the belief that like you only like learn things or experience things like when you're ready for it. But like the more I learn about like just the the limitless potential of our brains, I'm like, why didn't I know all this when I was 18? I feel like so many things would have been easier in my life. But, I have to believe that I had to go through the lessons I had to go through in my life to, be where I am today. But, oh, man, it's just amazing the information and techniques we have access to now.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And it's to have seen that over the course of our lifetime get like bigger and bigger and more powerful. It really is a fascinating and wild time to be interested in consciousness.
It is. It is. Yeah. So those of you just getting into this, welcome. It's a great time to be here. You don't have to mine for the information. It's so available now. It's fantastic. So, okay, well, let's talk about back to what I was talking about with the prom, like therapy or hypnosis stuff. There's so many myths out there about hypnotists and, you know, losing control, or you're just totally unconscious, or you're being even, some people fear manipulation, actually. Like, you know, I know like client trust is probably a huge deal in your profession. But let's debunk some of that.
Yes.
What's actually happening in a session when you do hypnotherapy?
Yes, this is so important. You know, I actually did speak with somebody once who they were curious about hypnosis, and they asked me, well, you're not going to like make me a sleeper cell agent or anything, are you? I was like, goodness, no.
Do you even come across like that relatively? That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But you know, the thing is, there are so many myths, and a lot of it comes from stage hypnosis. A lot of it comes from things we've seen in movies. Unfortunately, I think probably the things we see in TV and movies are when some villain uses hypnosis. So it's got a weird rap.
It does, for sure.
And the truth is, especially now, you know, if you went back several decades, some of the old school hypnosis, and not all of it, but some of the old school hypnosis was a little bit authoritarian. It was a little bit top down, you know, some important educated man telling you are going to feel better now. And
I know that still exists today. Yeah. You hear recordings. It's like, woo, I don't like this.
Yeah, that exists. It's not really the norm anymore. The norm, I would say at least, and you know, this has gone through evolutions, right? I think in some ways that's the oldest of the old school. Next you have, you know, recordings where it's just somebody reading the same script over and over for every single person. If you've seen that episode of Friends where I think maybe Joey ends up listening to something that's supposed to be about quitting smoking, but it's tailored for women. So it's saying, you know, oh, I'm a smart, powerful woman. And he's listening to it while he sleeps. Okay. You know, I think at that point we're in the 90s.
Yep. It was kind of like the tipping point of getting into
this is a thing. We're getting there. We're getting there. And then one of the things that is so cool about over the last, you know, 30 years or so, is that most hypnotherapeutic work, at least if you're working with people who are actively training with some of the more cutting edge teachers and practitioners, is that it is actually a highly, highly interactive thing. I don't walk in there with scripts. I walk in there with a bunch of different tools and trainings in my pocket, and we see, okay, where are we going here? I'm not going to be reading like this. I'm going to be asking you about your experience. We're going to drop into trance, and then you are going to actually be speaking with me the entire time, sharing what you're noticing, what you're experiencing, and then based on that, we're going to steer in the direction that you want to go. So it's actually really client-led, really empowering, really focused on making sure that when I'm working with you, you have the agency, the tools, the control to basically become your own healer. And that is what contemporary hypnotherapy looks like more often than not. If you get yourself with a good practitioner, it's going to be something that is improvisational, that is adaptive, and most importantly, actually puts you in the most empowered seat in the house.
Yeah. And I can see like you're, for example, you, when I speak with you, like your energy is so warm. I can tell you're very intuitive like that. I feel like that lends a hand for sure. And when you're doing hypnotherapy is just like being intuitive. Cause I can, imagine the very more masculine, just like scripted, like, you know, kind of yelling at you, talking down to you, like that would not resound with me whatsoever.
Still works for me.
Yeah. So I can, definitely see how, the more intuitive and more feminine approach, it's definitely, everyone needs to feel comfortable, right? Or how in the world is that going to work?
Absolutely. And I think some of this, it really reflects the culture and the mindset of the time. There was a time where having a powerful authority figure be the one in charge, being the one sort of steering the show, is what people wanted or thought they needed or expected. And thank goodness, at least for most of us, we're moving beyond that. And we're seeing that actually the most powerful healing and the most powerful pretty much anything is organizations, healing work, partnerships, collaborations that are, there's a lot of mutuality, there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of sharing, it's very democratic. And I think that's really important in healing, is to make sure that it's a collaborative process.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that so much. Okay, well, so in hypnotherapy and meditation in general, like if you do a guided meditation, it's all really kind of similar stuff where imagery and metaphor is kind of used more than just talking through logically. So why does imagery and metaphor work so well compared to just like talking like in a more logical sense when you do this?
I love this. It really works because that is the language of our unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind is not nearly as linear, rational, logical, talk-oriented. That's the stuff that's happening at that 5 to 10% conscious level.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Other space, that big chunk of the pie, that's communicating in metaphor and archetype and emotion and memory. It's part of why, when we see a beautiful piece of art or listen to a beautiful piece of music, something happens because it's actually communicating in the language that our subconscious mind actually responds to best.
That makes a lot of sense for people who are tapped into their like intuitive abilities. You could say their clairs, right? Like, which by the way, for my listeners, we will be doing a deep dive with a different guest here soon on the different clairs and how you can experience them and how you experience divine information. But yeah, it just reminds me so much of that, right? Like if you've ever sat and like channeled with somebody, you can both, the energies of your guides come in and we both see the same guide, right? Like spirit guide, but the way you might see them and describe them could be totally different than the person you're channeling with. But it's speaking to you where you're at. Like I have one friend who I've done practice channeling with, and she is really excellent with tarot, which I've never done tarot in my life. Like, I've had a couple of readings, but I don't know how it works. But it's so funny is like, I can receive information from like a spirit guide, and it's like the way I receive it with like maybe like a feeling or a color or something like that. And she sees like tarot imagery, but we're both getting the same message at the end of the day. And it's just really crazy. We all, it's this like language doesn't matter in the higher dimensions, I guess it kind of seems like.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I love this because, one of the other hats I wear is I'm a shamanic counselor. So I do shamanic journey work with people, which is so cool. Also really same umbrella. We're doing trance work to be able to uncover, understand, and heal. And one of the things that I find so fascinating when I get together with friends who are also practitioners in that modality and we do a journey together. Again, we're all working with our own guides. We're all doing our own unique thing. But the level of shared metaphor, imagery, theme that arises, sometimes it'll be 5 people all saying, and then this happened. And it's all basically the same because we do have the capacity when we are working with the unconscious mind to tap into so much more wisdom and information.
Absolutely. And two, I want to say with that is some people think if they're not seeing the same thing as you, that they're wrong, like, oh, there's something wrong with me. And it's just like, kind of, I just want to underscore how important it is to realize we're all individuals. We're all individual souls, individual pieces of the creator, right? Like we're not supposed to be the same. We're supposed to all be very different from each other, which is crazy when you think of how many billions of people are on the planet, how we can all be so different from each other. But I just think it's really cool. The universe never ceases to amaze me with how much individuality they can pack into a singular person,
Absolutely.
It's just crazy.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my next question for you then is actually it's going to be a two-part. So what kinds of patterns or struggles tend to respond really well to hypnotherapy? And also I'm curious, and obviously don't reveal any personal details about anybody, but what is like the biggest breakthrough with somebody in your career that you helped them overcome something?
Yeah, absolutely. Patterns that are frequent, I'll say that first.
I'm going to guess smoking. That's probably got to be.
Actually,
Really?
I do work with smoking, but it's not my biggest thing. And I think that's partly because a lot of the people that I'm working with, they're really, really already pretty deep, pretty curious, and they're wanting to get deeper at the heart of things. So I would say actually the biggest things that I have been working with lately, one, a lot of people coming with chronic illness and different health struggles, and things like IVF treatment, stuff like that.
Okay.
Where there is a deep relationship with the body that needs to be supported in a way that's maybe different than some of the medical interventions. So often it's done in complement with medical care, so that, somebody preparing for a surgery or somebody who just has a lot of grief because there's a chronic illness that's changed their life. Oftentimes we'll be working with that.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. The
I
stuff
work with
that, I obviously know I have this, but I'm not doing this to myself.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And how do we relate to ourselves and our world and, our sense of justice in the universe too, when we did nothing to get sick and here we are. That's a big, big existential thing.
Very much.
And so often that, I would also say a lot of people navigating relationship issues. And that might be something small, like there are coworkers that I get so impatient and frustrated with, and I want to be able to be a better leader in my organization and, show up as my best self. So a lot of leadership, a lot of wanting to be standing in their power, authentic, kind, courageous. But also on the romantic side of things, a lot of people who find themselves repeating the same patterns in romantic relationships and really wanting to break out into something different. So there's a real range of things that I'll work on with people, including, simpler habit change like exercising and smoking and, all different sorts of things like that.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
I've been binging, well, Love is Blind just finished on Netflix, another season of that. And every single time you see people say, I pick the same type of person every single time. And I'm hoping this breaks that for me. And
Wouldn't it be great to break that pattern?
I know. I'm like, hey, Love is Blind people, hypnotherapy. That's so funny. You don't have to go talk to a wall for 3 weeks or whatever.
No, you can get to the heart of it. You can understand it and change it. It's possible.
Feels so much less high stakes here. So
yes.
But anyway,
and then, your question too about breakthroughs. There's a few that are coming to mind. One is thinking about someone that I didn't even work with for very long. This was one of those things that it was sort of the magical best case scenario. This person was ready for a miracle. It's not always this easy sort of thing.
You were just that catalyst, that the last piece of the puzzle for them. Yeah.
And oftentimes, honestly, that is part of what happens here, is that people have already done so much of the work and they just need that one last thing to sort of tip it over the edge.
And that's a lot of like spirit-led stuff I
Yes,
tend to believe.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And this woman had been trying to get pregnant for a really, really long time. And she'd been going through fertility treatments, and she was having to go to the doctor and get blood drawn every single morning to see, are the hormone levels finally up enough to be able to go to the next step.
Man.
And we did some work together, and we did our session in the evening. She went to bed. She went into the doctor's office the next day. The hormone levels were completely different than they had been for years.
Oh my gosh.
Complete change. They went to retrieve eggs. They said they retrieved more viable eggs than they had ever retrieved in the history of the medical practice.
Wow.
And
I just got
she's
crown
supposed to,
tingles.
she's having a baby in a month. You
Oh
know,
my
this is
God.
one of those things where, you know what, I didn't do that. This was just the final push that her body needed to know that it was safe to bring new life into the world.
Yeah, like
You know,
something was just like
that was
holding
her
her back.
coming
She didn't
back
know.
into alignment. And you know, that is one of those things that we never know when some kind of a miraculous thing is going to happen. We just don't. You know, I'm thinking about some other folks where, you know, maybe it's not been as big and flashy, but people who they come back and they say, my partner, my husband, my wife, they say that I'm acting totally different now. I'm not anxious anymore. I'm not snapping at them anymore. I'm not reacting in the same way. And all of a sudden it opens up a new chapter in their relationship, or, you know, the struggle that they're going through, where there's more space, there's more possibility.
I literally, like, seriously, when you told me all that, full body chills. Like, that's just, this stuff is so powerful. And like again, for someone like myself, I'm very practical. I'm always like trying to like take things into my own hands and do stuff for myself. But that's just the reality, is sometimes there are things under the surface that you, unless you've like, you know, gone down your own journey of like trying to do this yourself, like learn about it. Like, I don't know how you would ever access that. And sometimes like, it's just, you have to accept, you just need a little bit of help. You need a little push. And wow. In like one session, how you could, you know, your like hypnotherapy could just change that woman's life forever in an instant almost.
That was a wild one. It's not always that fast, but you know, I mean, she just needed the extra nudge, and that was it.
You know, it's funny. I worked with a client once who, was having a hard time. She was trying to get a promotion in her career, and she was just having a hard time like advocating for herself. There was some kind of like worthiness issue we kind of identified through our conversations, and she'd never done EFT before. And this is the one and only session we've ever done EFT together, because, you know, I was like, I'm all about giving the tools and like, you go do this for yourself now. But we literally did EFT specifically on salary negotiations, like worthiness around doing a salary negotiation. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, you know, when you're done with an EFT session and you kind of are, you know, taking your deep breaths, like decompressing, literally as we're doing that, she gets a message from her boss. Hey, I need to talk to you about something. And she has to go from the call to like go and talk to her boss. It was literally for like, hey, we're going to promote you. What do you want your new salary to be? Like in that instant. I mean,
absolutely. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, you just can't. So this like energy reacts like pretty instantly, like instantaneously. And if you're not somebody who believes that energy matters, I suggest you get on the train, because it does. And it's like, it is everything. It's what makes the world go round and makes the world happen for you and not to you, right? So it's just so amazing. And that's actually a good segue into my last formal question before we get into it. We're going to do a little exercise. Juliana's going to do a really great kind of guided experience with me. I cannot wait to do that. But speaking of practical tools, because that's just what I'm all about, is I love how you don't position yourself as fixing people, right? Like you're not this top-down person, like I am the healer and you are the student. And it's a very like peer level experience is how you've described it to me. And you're giving them tools to become their own healer. I'm interested in, what does that look like in practice? Like obviously they do a session with you, but like what are some tools that, you know, you give to people that they can independently do themselves after working with you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And It depends on how long I'm working with people. And this really spans. There are people that I have done one session with, and that was great. It gave them what they needed. There are people who come to me every week and treat it more like therapy, because they see that, oh, this actually gives me something different than going and sitting in the therapist's office and
Therapy
talking
with a
about
tool. Yeah.
exactly. So, there's such a wide range, but a lot of the time in some of my first sessions with clients, there likely are going to be a few things that we do. One, oftentimes I do a practice where we connect with a guide, where we connect with a wise part of ourself, a more empowered part of ourself that we can go to for support, for wisdom, for guidance when we need it. And this is one of those things where not only in the moment is it incredibly supportive, but it also is something that people, especially if they already say have a meditation practice or something like that, they can often drop back into on their own and re-experience, revisit, ask more questions with that wiser guide, wiser self. So that's one thing. Another is that I'll often teach people self-hypnosis, especially when there's a pattern that, it feels really entrenched. It seems like, you just can't stop going to the fridge and getting that pint of ice cream every night or whatever it is,
Yes.
Every time you see your neighbor, you feel frustrated because they complain to the HOA, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What is the way to actually stop and de-escalate? And what is the way to actually begin to change those neural pathways so that you have more control and agency? So a lot of the time that looks like teaching someone self-hypnosis.
Okay.
Oftentimes we'll also do different nervous system regulation practices, including EFT, as a way to say, okay, first step, let's learn how to not be in that heightened state where the fear or the anxiety or the hopelessness or the anger is taking control over you rather than you taking some control in that situation. So I do try to equip people with as many tools as I can, and do encourage folks, especially as we're working together in between practices, in between sessions, find a way to implement these things in your day-to-day life, because the more you practice them, the more helpful it's going to be and the more rapid the change is going to be.
I love that. And that just tells me you were in this for all the right reasons. Like, no gatekeeping here. Like, we're interested in seeing people do better and change their lives for the better. And I completely resound with that. Like, that's why I have this whole podcast. I just literally, like, I've been through a lot. I have things that worked for me. And that's like kind of the whole premise for the podcast is like, I just want people to learn from the stuff that I've already been through and came out on the other side. And like, okay, what worked for me? Let me share that with everybody, because everybody is capable of living in their highest timeline, their highest like possible self in this life. And I would like, how beautiful would the world be if everybody was literally living that way and like happy and smiling and getting everything that they ever desired. And so I'm just trying to help do my small part in this world to hopefully help people get there too. So, well, amazing, Juliana. I learned a ton. I can only imagine what my listeners have learned so far. You're just so knowledgeable, and so I love your warmth and you're just very, very good scientific explanations for stuff.
Oh,
so I
thank
really,
you.
really appreciate that. So yeah, I want people to kind of experience some of this magic, even just in a small way. So as you and I talked about before we recorded, I'm going to be volunteering myself, and we'll do Julianne is going to guide me through a short interactive process so that people can kind of feel what this is like in real time. And so Juliana, we kind of discussed like this kind of a guided meditation, I guess we'll call it, so however you would like to call it. But I will say to the listeners, I think it was my second episode ever, season 1, episode 2. I put out a similar meditation that I know listeners really resounded with. And this is going to be similar to that in a way, but like, that's one of those, like, it's recorded. I'm just speaking at you and you're listening and doing it. And I want people to see how iterative this practice can be to meet you where you're at. So I love that this is live and you can kind of massage it to like where you feel like me as the pseudo client is at. So really exciting. Love that we can kind of demonstrate that in real time. So
Yeah, absolutely.
so let's say for the purpose of this mini session, let's say I'm having a hard time like breaking through to what I perceive as my next level of abundance. Like I'm ready to like be at my next level. I'm doing all the stuff. I don't know what's going on. And I'm interested in clearing any blocks that are in my way. So, Juliana, I will let you kind of take the floor, and I am your, volunteer here. So I'm
All
very
right,
excited.
great. And so Audra, as we're starting, I'm curious, just thinking about this for the podcast, thinking about making sure that this is something people can do. Oftentimes, I usually ask the person I'm working one-on-one with to share what they're experiencing.
Okay.
So I could either ask you to share what you're experiencing, or I can let it be a little bit more broad so that everybody can practice along. And in that case, just so I can get tabs on where you're at, I might just invite you to like nod a few times.
Okay.
Which
Yeah,
one sounds better?
I'm feeling like just for the sake of everybody having benefit, let's go a
Yes.
little more broad on it in
Okay.
that
All
way.
right. We're
Yeah,
going
I
to go
love it.
broad then.
Okay.
And okay. So, first off, your intention here is to break through in that next level of abundance. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. This is where I nod now. Now I don't
Well,
talk going forward.
no,
or
we're
can
good. I wanted to make sure. So that's great.
Okay, perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So just allowing yourself to get comfortable, feeling your feet on the floor, your body supported by the chair. And we're just going to do a little simple trance induction so that it doesn't have to be a whole big ordeal for people who are listening. I also want to say, if you're listening and you are operating heavy machinery or doing anything like that, press pause, come back to this later. This is appropriate to do in a quiet, safe environment where you are not driving a vehicle or doing anything of the sort. So I'll just invite you as you're resting here to let your hands rest in your lap with your palms facing upwards towards the ceiling. And just allowing yourself right now to imagine that you could just place your mind, your awareness, your attention right there in the palm of your right hand. Almost like you could let that mind just rest there in the palm of your right hand and take a very well-deserved break. And because we have agency and power, allowing yourself now to take that mind and just move it up to the inside of your right elbow, that nice soft kind of cradling place. Just letting the mind rest right there. And moving that mind, that attention to rest gently on the right shoulder. Almost like it could lean on or sit on that right shoulder, just resting. And then moving the mind over to the left shoulder. Noticing maybe that left shoulder feels different to rest on than the right shoulder. Maybe it feels similar. Moving that mind down to the inside of the left elbow now. And over to the left palm of the hand, resting that mind there in the left palm of your hand. And then to the right palm. And the right inner elbow. Up to that right shoulder. The left shoulder. Left inner elbow. left palm. And then one more time to that right palm. That right inner elbow, right shoulder, left shoulder, left elbow, left palm. And just allowing yourself now to sense into the presence of the earth. All of the nourishing, supportive abundance that's here in the earth, and just imagining that you could send down roots from your body, connecting with all the support of the earth. You might even want to imagine that you could draw in some of that energy from the earth, knowing that we're all here just powerfully, deeply honoring your intention to bring in more abundance, to feel like you've stepped into that next level that you want to be at. And just allowing yourself to turn for a moment to your body and inviting your body to show you where the energy of any block or obstacle to that abundance is living in your body. And when you have it, just nod. Great. And so as you sense into that energy of blockage or obstacle, just allowing yourself to imagine or sense or feel if this block looked like something, what would it look like? And once you've got an image or an object, maybe it's a cartoon character or a shape, I don't know, just nodding. Great. And so knowing that this embodiment of the block is here. And for now, just allowing yourself to let it walk off to the side of your awareness. Almost like it's just off on the very edge of your consciousness, just for now. And then turning back to your body again. And now this time, asking your body to show you the resource energy, the energy that's here that can make that abundance possible. Noticing where you feel that in the body. And maybe it feels like love or hope or power, strength. You can just nod when you feel it. Yeah. And again, if this energy had its own form or color or shape or image, sensing into what it would look like. And just allowing yourself here for a moment to really rest in the presence of this energy. Noticing what it's like. How it is when you're connected to this resource. Maybe even noticing who you are when you try it on and embody this kind of resource. And then in a moment, I'm going to invite you to bring that blockage energy and this resource energy into your awareness at the same time. And sometimes people like to toggle back and forth. Sometimes they just bring them right in front of them. And so just nod when it feels like you've got them both. Great. And so now just allowing yourself to let that resource energy begin to flow into that blockage energy. Letting it transform as that resource flows in. You might notice that blockage energy changing shape or form or color as that resource moves in. Letting it transform into something new, something different. Noticing what it's like now that that's changed. You might notice what feels possible or what feels different. And then just letting yourself again invite that resource energy now to flow through your entire body, starting with your mind. Letting it ripple all the way through and down your body, your nervous system, your emotions, your energy. As if you could just run that resource energy through any place it's needed. And now that you're so filled with this resource energy, just for fun, allowing yourself to imagine in front of you there's a movie on a screen, and that movie is playing you in a year from now, feeling abundant, feeling confident, having done all the things that you wanted to do and then some. Just noticing on that movie screen what you're doing, where you are, who's there. And just allowing yourself to float into that movie and try it on. Feeling how good it feels. Knowing that you have gotten to exactly where you want to be. And then floating out. And when you're ready, you can stretch a little bit or shake it off and come back.
Wow. That was incredible. Okay, I need to bottle your voice. That was incredible. Oh my gosh, can I share a little bit of what I saw?
Yeah, please.
Oh, okay. It was like really crazy. I don't know if it ever gets this literal, but like my blockage was in my left ankle and it felt very cold. And then when you said give it imagery, it was like a block of ice. And then the, what did you call it? Resource energy. Immediately it was my heart and it was like on fire. And so I had fire and ice. And so it was really easy when it was like, okay, like shoot it down to like the resource energy down to my blockage. It was like ice melting and turning into steam. And it was like this, it was so, I mean, very vivid, very rich. Like, I don't know, I'm not usually able to like see so well. So that was very amazing. Wow. Well, I can't wait to call you tomorrow and tell you what happens for me. No.
Oh, please. I hope that you get that call or that email or whatever it is that you're hoping for.
I'm
real
open
soon.
to like any possibility right now is kind of like where I'm at this really cool, like kind of crossroads in my life right now of just so many possibilities. So it's been actually a really exciting time. And that was amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that, Juliana. I hope my listeners can, take that and if you can just see how easy it's like Mad Libs, right? You just kind of like put in the thing you're working through.
Exactly.
Boom. Yeah.
I mean, and the great thing, that is a really simple, really easy practice. The fun thing with it too, now that you know it, It's great for things like abundance, places where we feel blocked. It's actually also really good if you have a headache and you want to get rid of the headache really fast. Well, guess what? That's a tool that you have in your toolbox.
Amazing.
There's so many ways that this can actually be applied.
Yeah. Oh, it's the theoretical, physical, all of it. So amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your talents and energy with me today on all of this, plus that beautiful meditation. I just, I just like, I guess the last thing I'll say before I'll actually let you kind of like close us out is, if someone resonated with what they might have just experienced today throughout this podcast episode or the trance itself, what would you suggest as their first next step?
Absolutely. I would love to invite them to hop over to my website. They can do one-on-one sessions with me. There's an easy way to schedule a free consultation call to see if it feels like a fit. A couple other options too. I am as a meditation teacher. We don't do exactly this, but we get close. Yeah. I teach online, especially throughout the month at different places throughout the country. And so if you're also looking to practice mindfulness, learn more about meditation, there are also an incredible number of resources on my website. I'm also an insight timer. So if you'd like a guided practice that's just a quick 10-minute recording that you get to pop in before you get up out of bed to start your day, or as you're falling asleep at night or taking your lunch break, if you go to Insight Timer and search for me, you can also find a lot of recordings.
Is that an app, Insight
Timer? It is. It's an app and a website. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've never heard of this before. I feel like that is right up my alley, and I've never heard of this before.
I think you will like it. There's a lot of great resources.
Absolutely. Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, for our listeners, everything that you're going to need resource-wise for Juliana is going to be in the show notes. So no worries there. Just everything will be in the show notes. Anything Juliana wants to put out, that's what I'll be adding. And then finally, Juliana, I know you have some things coming up in your business that you kind of want to share with my listeners, just in case that there's any interest there. So I'd love to invite you to share more about that.
Absolutely. I have a women's meditation retreat coming up in late April, early May in Northern California. It is going to be a glamping retreat. So, immersion in nature, a lot of time for silent practice, but also for some connection with community. It's a Buddhist orientation, but it's open to anybody who's interested in mindfulness and meditation. There is not a barrier to entry there.
Amazing. Oh, that sounds so cool. And oh my gosh, side note, I'm actually like kind of sweating now. Like I sent that fire through my body and I'm like, ooh, I'm like sweating a little bit out of nowhere. That's so funny. But no, that sounds amazing. Glamping retreat in Northern California. Does it get any more beautiful than that? Especially in the springtime. So fantastic. Well, that also information on that will also be included in my show notes. So for anybody who's interested to learn more, pop in there and check it out. But otherwise, Juliana, with so much gratitude, seriously, thank you so much for being here today. I just can't thank you enough. It was so beautiful and I learned so much. And yeah, I hope our listeners found like some resonation here. If they're feeling stuck, like there is a way out. You have help out there. There's hypnotherapy and it's not just for prom. So turns out it's amazing and we haven't been utilizing it enough. So yeah, very exciting. So thank you again, Juliana.
Thank you
really
so
appreciate
much. It. So great to be here today.
Yeah, well, have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you.
Too.
Bye.